My life feels like treading water in the middle of an endless ocean. No land in sight, no idea which way to swim, just floating. That's how it's been lately. This dull, aimless drift from one dead-end decision to another. A year ago, I had a plan. Or at least, I thought I did. I was in school back then, balancing part-time shifts at a coffee shop with late nights cramming for exams. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like I was going somewhere. I had roommates who were more like family, a rickety old couch we all fought over, and a running joke about how none of us could ever afford new furniture. Things were simple, manageable, the kind of life that made you believe in stepping stones, that each choice could lead to something better. But stepping stones can turn to quicksand fast. First, there was the tuition increase. The coffee shop couldn't cover it, and neither could I. Then came the arguments with my roommates, small cracks that turned into a complete collapse when one of them bailed and the rent shot up. Before I knew it, I was packing up my things, heading back to my parents' house like a dog with its tail between its legs. I told myself it was temporary, just a couple of months, just until I saved enough to move out again. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of awkward dinners and polite silences while my parents tried to pretend they weren't disappointed in me. 6 months of scouring job boards for something, anything that could pay the bills and maybe give me some breathing room. That's how I ended up here. The night shift at a fulfillment warehouse isn't the kind of job you dream about. It's not even the kind of job you take if you have better options. But it was available, it paid just enough, and the ad said something about minimal supervision. That sounded good. No bosses breathing down my neck, no customers complaining about latte foam. Just me and the quiet hum of machines. Quiet sounded nice. I didn't realize how loud silence could be. The warehouse loomed ahead of me, massive and nondescript, its steel walls glowing faintly under the harsh floodlights. The parking lot was almost empty except for a few scattered cars and a truck that looked older than I was. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, the cold seeping through the thin fabric, and made my way to the entrance. Inside, the place was exactly what I expected. Rows and rows of shelves stacked so high they disappeared into the shadows. Conveyor belts crisscrossed the floor, some running slow and steady, others completely still. The air smelled faintly of cardboard and machine oil. It was quiet, eerily so. Even the hum of the machines felt muted, like the warehouse itself was holding its breath. I signed in at the front desk, my pen scratching against the paper as I scribbled my name. The lone security guard barely looked up from his crossword puzzle, muttering something about orientation and pointing me toward the lockers. That's where I met Jamie. "Hey, newbie," a voice rang out as I opened the metal door. I turned to see a wiry figure leaning casually against the rows of lockers, in a wrinkled uniform and the name tag hanging by one bent pin. He looked like he'd been here forever, like he'd seen it all and couldn't be bothered to care anymore. "You must be Alex," he said, smirking. "You're the new blood, huh?" I nodded, stuffing my bag into the locker. "Yeah, first night." "Well, don't worry," Jamie said, pushing off the lockers and strolling toward me. "It's not as bad as it looks. You get used to it. Or you quit before it drives you insane. Either way, you won't notice the difference after a while." I tried to laugh, but it came out weak. Jamie noticed and grinned. "Relax, I'm kidding, mostly." "Good to know," I muttered, shutting the locker door. "So, what's the deal here? Just stack boxes and try not to fall asleep?" "Pretty much," Jamie said, shrugging. "Oh, and follow the rules." "The rules?" Jamie nodded toward a clipboard sitting on the bench nearby. "Yeah, survival guide, courtesy of whoever used to work here before us. Probably just some old joke, but it's tradition to read 'em on your first night. I picked up the clipboard, the paper yellowed and creased from too many hands. At the top, scrawled in messy handwriting, was the title, Night Shift Rules. Follow these to stay alive. I raised an eyebrow. Stay alive? That's a little dramatic. Jamie chuckled. Yeah, well, it's better than a don't mess up or you're fired, right? Go ahead, read 'em. They're good for a laugh. I scanned the list, each rule stranger than the last. If you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around. No one is supposed to be there. Keep moving and hum a tune to yourself. When shelving packages, always make sure the label is facing outward. If you notice one flipped backward, leave it and walk away quickly. If the conveyor belt stops and you hear a sigh, do not try to restart it. Wait exactly 5 minutes, then resume working as if nothing happened. Avoid aisle 17 after 11:30 p.m. It's not empty, no matter what the system says. Never, under any circumstances, acknowledge someone wearing a uniform different from your own. They no longer work here. If your scanner displays a package with no weight or dimensions, do not pick it up. If the emergency lights flicker 3 times, immediately find a reflective surface. Watch for what doesn't move the same way you do. This is a joke, right? I asked, glancing up at Jamie. He shrugged again. Maybe. Or maybe it's just one of those things you don't ask too many questions about. Either way, it's better to follow them. You know, just in case. Right, I said, my voice dripping with skepticism. Because ghosts love logistics. Jamie grinned. Exactly. Welcome to the night shift. We started work shortly after that. And for a while, it was exactly what I expected. Dull, repetitive, and strangely lonely despite Jamie's occasional jokes. But as the hours dragged on, the clipboard's rules nagged at the back of my mind. The more I thought about them, the more they felt like something I shouldn't ignore. And then I heard it. The footsteps. Heavy and unrelenting, each one echoing through the emptiness, closing the distance with an unsettling precision. The footsteps stopped just as suddenly as they started, leaving the silence behind feeling impossibly loud. My hands tremble as I place the box on the shelf, careful not to look over my shoulder. My breath comes in short, sharp gasps, but I force myself to hum. A half-remembered tune from an old commercial, the only thing my panicked brain can muster. The fluorescent lights above flicker once, twice, and I instinctively glance at the nearest reflective panel on the sorting machine. For a second, everything seems normal. Just me, my uniform, the faint green glow of the scanner in my hand. But then my reflection moves differently, turning its head just a moment too late, its glassy eyes staring back at me. I drop the scanner and step back, my heart hammering in my chest. Alex? Jamie's voice calls from the next aisle, startling me. You good over there? I blink, and my reflection is just that. A reflection. Normal. I let out a shaky laugh, picking up the scanner and gripping it tightly. Yeah, I call back. Fine. Sure doesn't sound like it, Jamie replies, their voice closer now. A moment later, his head pops around the corner, the usual smirk in place. You look like you just saw a ghost. I glance at the reflective panel again, but nothing's there. It's nothing. Just thought I saw something. Probably my imagination. Jamie raises an eyebrow but doesn't press the issue. Hey, you're not buying into all that rules nonsense, are you? I don't know, I admit. Maybe. I mean, you've seen the stuff on that list. It's weird. Yeah, weird, Jamie says, rolling their eyes. But come on, you really think a bunch of scribbled notes are going to keep us safe from... what? Monsters? Ghosts? Evil warehouse spirits? He laughs, but it sounds forced. And for the first time, I notice the nervous edge in his eyes. Jamie might joke about the rules, but he's not entirely dismissing them either. We go back to work, but the air between us feels heavier now, like we're both pretending not to notice the strange things happening around us. The conveyor belts seem to hum louder, the flickering lights more erratic. Every so often, I catch Jamie glancing toward aisle 17, where the shadows seem to pool unnaturally, stretching longer and darker than they should. "Why are you so fixated on that aisle?" I ask finally. Jamie shrugs. "No reason." "Jamie." "Fine," he snapped, cutting me off. "It's just, I thought I saw someone over there last week. Looked like one of the supervisors. But he was wearing this old uniform, like way older than what we wear now. I tried to follow him, but he just disappeared." I stare at him, unsure if he's joking. "And you didn't think that was worth mentioning?" "Why? So you could freak out and quit on your first night?" Jamie says, but his grin is half-hearted. "Look, it's probably nothing. I'm still here, right?" The shift grinds on, the hours blurring together. At some point, the conveyor belt nearest to me stops with a jarring clang. I freeze, remembering Rule 3. If the conveyor belt stops and you hear a sigh, do not try to restart it. Wait exactly 5 minutes. I don't hear a sigh. Not at first, but then, faint and almost imperceptible, it drifts through the air like a soft exhale. My pulse quickens. The urge to press the restart button is overwhelming. I force myself to wait, counting each agonizing second. After what feels like an eternity, the belt jerks back to life on its own, the packages sliding forward as if nothing happened. My relief is short-lived when I realize Jamie's gone silent. "Jamie," I call out, stepping away from the belt. "You still here?" No answer. I round the corner toward aisle 17, dread clawing at my chest. Jamie's scanner lies on the floor, its screen blinking red. And then I see them. Jamie, standing at the far end of the aisle, facing someone in an old, tattered uniform. The figure doesn't move, but its head tilts unnaturally, as if studying Jamie. "Jamie, don't!" I shout, my voice cracking. "Get away from him!" Jamie turns to me, their face pale but defiant. "Relax, Alex. It's just some supervisor or something. Probably checking inventory." The figure's head tilts further, the movement sharp and mechanical. A cold wave of terror washes over me. "That's not a supervisor." My voice low. "Come back here. Now." Jamie hesitates for a moment before turning back to the figure. "Hey, are you?" The lights flicker violently, and everything goes dark for a split second. When they come back on, Jamie is gone. The figure remains for a moment longer, staring at me with its hollow, unreadable face, before stepping backward into the shadows and vanishing completely. I stand frozen, my breath catching in my throat. Jamie's voice echoes faintly in my head, a teasing joke from earlier. "Ghosts? Sure, because that's not creepy at all." But there's no humor in it now. Only the heavy, suffocating silence of the warehouse and the sickening realization that I'm alone. The scanner lay on the floor where Jamie had been. Its red light blinked steadily, an unfeeling metronome in the suffocating silence. My chest tightened as I bent down and picked it up. The screen flickered, displaying a static-filled mess of symbols before clearing to a single word. "Help." My breath hitched, and I almost dropped it again. My fingers gripped the device tighter, my heart pounding as 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Jamie was gone. The figure, whatever it was, had disappeared too. And now this? I scrambled to pull my phone out of my pocket. My hand trembled as I scrolled to the manager's number and hit call. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, and each second felt like an eternity. When the manager picked up, his voice was groggy, irritated. "Hello?" "This is Alex," I stammered, my voice shaking. "Something's wrong. Jamie's gone." The line went quiet for a moment, and I could hear faint rustling on the other end. "Who went missing?" he finally asked. "Jamie," I repeated, louder this time. "The coworker who's been here with me tonight. He disappeared. There was this person, but..." "Alex," the manager cut me off, his voice firm now. "You're the only one on the night shift." I blinked, my stomach turning cold. "What? No, that's not possible. Jamie was here. We talked. He showed me the rules. We were working together." "No one named Jamie works here," the manager said flatly. His words felt like a punch to the gut. "And even if they did, there's no one else scheduled for tonight. You're alone." My mouth went dry. "You're wrong," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He was here. I'm not making this up." The manager sighed, his tone shifting to something resembling impatience. "I don't know what's going on over there, but there's no Jamie. If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a break. I'll see you in the morning." The line went dead. I stood there, staring at my phone like it might offer an explanation. But it didn't. The words "you're alone" echoed in my head, over and over, like a death knell. I swallowed hard, gripping the scanner as if it might tether me to reality. The screen flickered again. Static filled it briefly before another message appeared, clear and final. "You won't escape." Before I could react, the scanner grew hot in my hand. I yelped and dropped it, just as the screen shattered. The shards didn't hit the ground. Instead, they dissolved into ash midair, disappearing into nothingness. My pulse raced as I stared at the spot where the scanner had been. My breathing was shallow, panicked. "Okay," I whispered, backing away. "I'm done. I'm leaving." I turned and made my way toward the nearest exit, my legs moving on autopilot. The rows of shelves seemed endless, but I focused on the glowing red sign above the door. My chest tightened with every step, my thoughts racing. The manager's voice played on a loop in my head, mocking me. "You're the only one on the night shift." When I finally reached the exit, I shoved the push bar with all my strength. It didn't budge. My heart sank as I tried again, harder this time. Nothing. "Come on," I muttered, panic clawing at my throat. I rattled the door, throwing my shoulder against it, but it wouldn't move. The lock didn't even make a sound, like it wasn't meant to open at all. I turned and ran to another exit. This time, I didn't bother walking. I sprinted, my footsteps echoing through the empty warehouse. The air felt heavier, thicker, like it was trying to hold me back. My lungs burned by the time I reached the next door, but I didn't stop. I slammed into it with everything I had. It didn't budge. "No, please," I whispered, pounding my fists against the cold metal. "This can't be happening." I backed away, my mind scrambling for answers. My eyes darted to the walls, searching for anything. A window, a vent, something to prove I wasn't trapped. But the walls stretched endlessly, the shelves towering like prison bars. The warehouse felt bigger now, like it was swallowing me whole. And then I heard it. Jamie's voice. "Alex," it called softly, faint but unmistakable. "Don't leave me." I turned toward the sound, my heart racing. My legs felt like lead as I stumbled back down the aisle. The shadows seemed to grow darker, pooling together like liquid as Jamie's voice came again. "Alex, please, I need you." The lights above flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. I froze, the darkness swallowing everything. My breath was loud in my ears, my chest heaving. Somewhere behind me, the laughter started, low and guttural, twisted into something barely human. "You can't escape," the voice hissed. "You've already broken the rules." The laughter faded into silence, leaving me gasping for air as I clutched the clipboard like a lifeline. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to keep moving. The exits were locked, and the warehouse seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. But then, the memory hit me like a lightning bolt. Jamie had laughed off the rules, but I hadn't. I'd read every line, and now the words about those impossible packages came rushing back. If your scanner displays a package with no weight or dimensions, do not pick it up. I stopped in my tracks, my breathing ragged. The packages had always seemed odd, scattered randomly around the shelves, like they didn't belong. My stomach twisted as a horrible thought took root. What if they're not just random? What if they were somehow connected to what was going on in this place? I had to risk it. I began moving again, this time scanning the shelves more carefully. The thought of staying in one place too long made my skin crawl, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that the packages were important. The first one I spotted was small and plain, sitting on the edge of a shelf in aisle 15. My scanner buzzed faintly as I approached, the screen flickering before going blank. I reached out hesitantly, my hands trembling, and lifted it. My chest tightened. It weighed nothing. It felt like I was holding air. The lights above me flickered violently, and I swore I heard something move in the distance. A low and furious growl echoed through the aisles. I didn't have time to second-guess myself. I stuffed the package under my arm and kept moving. The second one was 3 aisles over, sitting crookedly on a conveyor belt. I grabbed it quickly, ignoring the faint static that crackled from the scanner as I passed. The growl came again, louder this time, closer. My pulse pounded in my ears as I darted down the next aisle. The third package was there, perched precariously on top of a stack of boxes. It felt colder than the others, its edges sharp against my skin. I clutched the packages tightly and kept moving, my breath hitching with every step. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the warehouse itself was watching me. I didn't know how many of these things I needed, but I wasn't about to stop until I had enough. By the time I found the 5th package, the growling had turned into something worse. A low, guttural scream that vibrated through the walls. The shelves rattled, and the lights above me buzzed and flickered erratically. My chest heaved as I stumbled into the center of the warehouse, my arms full of packages that felt both weightless and unbearably heavy. There was a stack of discarded pallets nearby. My hands shook as I piled the packages onto them, their blank surfaces almost glowing in the dim light. I fumbled with my pocket, pulling out the cheap plastic lighter I always carried. The thought of fire in a place like this, a building filled with flammable boxes and machinery, should have terrified me. But the thought of whatever was hunting me terrified me more. The first flick of the lighter failed, my thumb slipping against the wheel. The scream echoed again, louder, closer. My hands trembled as I tried again. The tiny flame sputtered to life, and I hesitated for only a second before dropping it onto the pile. The fire caught faster than I expected, flames licking hungrily at the packages. The heat was instant and overwhelming, but I didn't step back. I couldn't, not yet. A sound tore through the warehouse, so loud and visceral it made my knees buckle. It was a scream, but not like anything I'd ever heard. It was layered, distorted, a cacophony of voices and rage. The ground beneath me seemed to shake, and I stumbled backward, shielding my face from the heat. I turned toward the exit, my heart leaping as I saw it shuddering against its frame. I ran, my legs burning with every step, as the door groaned and bulged outward. I didn't dare slow down. The hum of the conveyor belt sputtered back to life, a broken symphony of sound that chased me down the aisles. When I reached the door, I threw myself against it with all my strength. The frame creaked, and for a horrible moment, I thought it wouldn't open. Then, with a final, ear-splitting crack, the door burst open, and I stumbled out into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I was halfway across the parking lot. My breath came in ragged gasps, my chest heaving as I turned back to look at the warehouse. The door stood wide open, the darkness inside almost spilling out like liquid. And then I saw him. Jamie stood in the doorway, his uniform pristine, his smile wide and sinister. He raised a hand in a mocking wave, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I reached home, slamming the door behind me and locking it. My chest heaved as I collapsed onto the couch, my hands still trembling. The events of the night replayed in my mind, disjointed and surreal. The packages, the fire, the scream. Jamie. I didn't know how long I sat there before my phone buzzed on the coffee table. My stomach twisted as I picked it up, the manager's number flashing on the screen. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but something compelled me to answer. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse. "Alex," the manager's voice came through, calm and steady. "I noticed you left the warehouse early." I swallowed hard. Something happened. The doors were locked and Jamie. "There is no Jamie," the manager interrupted sharply. "And you know it's against policy to leave during your shift." I had no choice, I snapped. "The warehouse. There was something in there." "It's fine," the manager said, cutting me off again. His tone was almost amused. "I'll let it slide this time." My breath caught. "What?" "We'll see you tonight," he continued, his voice taking on an unsettling familiarity. Same shift, same hour. For a second, I thought the line had gone dead. Then, just before it clicked off, I heard it. Jamie's voice, soft and mocking. "Looking forward to it."